The Pacific Brief. From Sydney, we unpack the forces driving change across Oceania and Asia. From Sydney in our studio overlooking the Pacific, there's a particular energy today because this conversation connects three continents at once: Europe, Australia, and Latin America. Welcome to the Pacific Brief. And today, I'm joined by someone who understands the Atlantic perspective as deeply as we understand the Indo-Pacific here, Camila Perez. Camila, welcome to Sydney. It's great to have you here in the studio and to bring this transcontinental perspective into the conversation.
Thank you, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here. And I have to say, discussing EU trade policy from Sydney gives this topic a completely different dimension.
From here in Australia, the newly concluded EU-Australia Free Trade Agreement feels like more than just a trade deal. It's a strategic alignment. After years of negotiation since 2018, we've now seen a political breakthrough in March 2026. The agreement is set to eliminate over 99% of tariffs on EU exports to Australia, while around 98% of Australian exports will enter the EU duty-free once ratified. But beyond tariffs, what stands out on the ground is the strategic layer: access to critical minerals like lithium and rare earths. These are not just commodities anymore, they are the backbone of Europe's energy transition.
And from the South American perspective, Alex, the EU-Mercosur agreement tells a very different story. This deal has been politically agreed since 2019, but only now, in 2026, it is entering provisional application. It creates a market of more than 700 million people, making it one of the largest trade zones globally. But unlike Australia, Mercosur is not a high-income, highly regulated market. It's a complex mix of emerging economies: Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, with strong agricultural sectors and very different regulatory environments.
Exactly, and that difference is critical. For European industries, especially machinery, automotive and chemicals, Australia is a premium market. Tariffs of up to 5% are being eliminated, which directly improves competitiveness. Here in Sydney, businesses are already looking at this as a gateway not just to Australia, but to the wider Indo-Pacific supply chain. The regulatory alignment is strong, the legal systems are stable, and that reduces friction.
In Mercosur, the opportunity is real, but the dynamics are tougher. European manufacturers will benefit from reduced tariffs, in some cases from as high as 35% on cars and up to 20% on machinery. But they enter a much more price-sensitive market. Local industries are competitive and regulatory standards are less harmonized. So while the market is large, the margins and operational complexity are very different from Australia.
Now, if we turn to agriculture, which is always where trade deals get politically sensitive, the EU-Australia agreement has been relatively contained. Yes, there were tough negotiations around beef and dairy, but in the end, quotas were introduced and EU standards remain strict. From an Australian perspective, there's even some frustration that access wasn't broader, so politically, this deal has been manageable.
That's where the contrast becomes very sharp. In Europe, the Mercosur deal has triggered significant protests, especially from farmers. The concern is clear: increased imports of beef, poultry, sugar, and ethanol from South America. Even with quotas and safeguards, the perception is strong that European agriculture is under pressure from lower-cost producers. And then there's the environmental dimension, particularly deforestation in the Amazon. That has turned this agreement into a political flashpoint across Europe.
From a regional perspective, the EU-Australia deal is also about geopolitics. Europe is diversifying away from overdependence on China, especially in critical supply chains. Australia, with its resource base and political stability, becomes a key partner. And importantly, this agreement is linked to broader cooperation, including security and research partnerships. It's a signal that the Indo-Pacific is now central to Europe's strategy.
And in Latin America, the strategic logic is similar, but the execution is more complicated. For the EU, Mercosur is about maintaining influence in a region where China has become a dominant economic player. But because of internal EU divisions, especially around climate policy, the agreement carries what many call a political cost. So while the strategic intent is strong, the implementation remains fragile.
One thing that stands out here is alignment on standards. Australia and the EU already operate at relatively high environmental and regulatory levels, so sustainability chapters in the agreement reinforce existing practices rather than redefine them. That makes implementation smoother and less controversial.
In Mercosur, sustainability is not just a chapter, it's the central debate. There are commitments to the Paris Agreement and to reducing deforestation. But critics argue enforcement mechanisms are too weak. So the agreement becomes not just an economic instrument, but a test case for how trade policy can enforce environmental standards globally.
From Sydney's vantage point, what we're seeing is a clear pattern. The EU is building two different types of partnerships at the same time. With Australia, a high-trust, high-standard agreement focused on resilience, technology, and supply chains. With Mercosur, a high-impact, high-risk agreement that opens massive markets but comes with political and environmental complexity.
And that dual approach reflects the reality of today's global economy. There is no single model for trade anymore. Each partnership is shaped by geography, politics, and economic structure. And in that sense, these two agreements together tell a bigger story about how the EU is redefining its role in a fragmented world.
Camila, thank you for bringing that Atlantic perspective into our Pacific conversation. And from all of us here in Sydney, this has been the Pacific Brief, where every dataset tells a story. And in this moment, that story is about connection, across oceans, across systems, and across the future of global trade. From Sydney, this was the Pacific Brief, decoding the economic, technological, and geopolitical forces shaping Oceania and Asia. You'll find more details, sources, and related insights in the show notes. This episode was AI-generated, written, produced, and voiced with advanced generative technology. I'm Alex Morgan, information influencer for InfoBroker World, reporting from the Pacific's front line of change. At InfoBroker World, we specialize in transforming expert knowledge and research into fully produced AI-based podcasts, from data and editorial research to script writing, voice synthesis, and final production. If your organization wants to bring its expertise to life through intelligent audio storytelling, you'll find contact information and production details in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, this is the Pacific Brief, where Oceania meets the world economy.